Hey folks, we're going to get to the review in just a minute, but I have a request. If you are new to the channel, or if you're an existing subscriber, whatever the case may be, I would like your help. We're going to be trying something a little bit new here for this review, and a couple of other reviews are going to be going up at the same time, where I'm trying to cut back on the length of the video as a whole, but especially on the overview section. So for these videos at least, the overview as you knew it before is gone. Instead, I'm just going to give you a brief description of the game with some images of the game that I shot, just to keep it as brief as possible, to give you a taste for the game, and then to get back to my final thoughts as usual. So the intro and the outro are going to be mostly the same as you've seen in other reviews, but that middle section is going to be quite a bit different, and I want to know what you think. Let me know in the comments if you like it, if you hate it, if you like some parts of it but you don't like other parts of it. I expect that this will be a process, and I want to involve you guys and gals in the process as much as I possibly can. So take a look. I hope you enjoy the review, and I hope that you give me as much feedback as you possibly can. Thank you so much for your support. Let's get to it. Hey now, Brawlers, it's time for another Board Game Brawl review with Nick Minahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com. Hey folks, today we're going to take a look at Ascension Dreamscape from Stoneblade Entertainment. This is the latest standalone set for Ascension. In fact, I don't think they make these small sets anymore. We'll talk more about that in my final thoughts. But it plays very, very similarly to all of the other sets of Ascension, but there's a big difference in this set. Well, every set changes things in at least a small way. In this set, however, they're introducing a brand new type of currency and a brand new type of card to go along with it. It's Insight, that's what the name of the currency is, and you can buy dream cards with it. Sound kind of crazy and weird? It is, but it actually integrates quite well. So let me go ahead and show you just a quick look at some of the stuff that's in this set and explain how the Dream and Insight system works. Then we're going to come back. I'll let you know what I think. Ascension Dreamscape is another standalone set for Ascension, so it's playable from 1 to 4 players. There is a solo mode, and much of what comes in the box is the same as you can expect from other sets of Ascension. You have a full game board, you have all the necessary honor gems that you need, and you have the requisite cultist, heavy infantry, mystic, and the apprentices or apprentici or apprentices, however you want to falsely say it, and the militia that comes with every set of Ascension. That's an inside joke for our group, by the way. Now, the big and drastic change in this expansion for Ascension is Insight. This is a brand new form of currency in the game, and unlike runes and combat, this currency sticks around. They even have their own little gem for it in annoying football shape. I'll talk about that more in my final thoughts. When you gain Insight, certain cards that have a little orange symbol on them will gain new Insight. You can actually take them, put them in your player area, and hold on to them until you're ready to use them. Now, what are you going to use them on? Well, there's several normal cards that will come out in the center row that are going to be influenced by Insight, and in fact, many cards that come out in the center row will have the Dreamborn keyword on them. When those enter the center row, they're each going to give every player an Insight, and then when someone purchases that card, they get another Insight as well. But the thing that you're going to be using them primarily on are dream cards. There's a special deck of cards called the Dream Deck, and at the start of the game, every player is going to get 5 cards from that deck, choose 3 of them to keep, and put the other cards back into the deck, shuffling them without showing them to anyone. These cards are your own personal buy pile. You don't show them to the other players, you keep them secret and to yourself, and then when you've accrued enough Insight, you can spend that Insight on your turn at any time to acquire those dream cards from your dreams. It's called your Dreamscape, hence the name of the expansion, and those cards go into your discard pile just like any other card that you acquire in the game, unless they are vision cards. Vision cards have an instantaneous effect. You pay the Insight cost and immediately do the effect. Some of those are rather cheap cards that just have effects like you are able to double your honor, or you may spend honor to kill monsters this turn, things like that, or not honor, but runes. However, some of the vision cards have much more dramatic effects. In fact, they can stay in play as ongoing cards, sort of like enchantments or like constructs, to use the parlance of this game. And as I alluded to before, many of the cards in the standard center row of the game are going to be influenced by your Dreamscape or influence your Dreamscape, as well as the insight that you gain during the game. Some cards or monsters that you kill will add more cards from your Dreamscape or remove other players' cards from their Dreamscape, give you more insight, give you insight for doing special things during the game, all in the service of getting those Dream cards. There's even special Dream cards that don't even have their own faction. They're just called the Dream faction. But of course, the more things change, the more they stay the same, and you can of course count on there being the big bomb cards coming out in the center row that go head to head with the cards from the Dream deck as far as power is concerned. But many of the things in this set specifically refer to insight and dreams in a way that the other cards in other sets of expansion really haven't. They focus very much on this new mechanism. So that is basically what comes in the Ascension Dreamscape set. Let's get to my final thoughts. Well, let's start with the physical presentation of the game itself. I'm going to declare the war on Ascension's artwork over, and they have come around for the better. This game looks fantastic. It really does. I've notoriously had problems with the artwork in Ascension before, but with the last few sets, I think that they have finally got their act together and have quelled that completely. It looks fantastic, not just for an Ascension game, for any game out there. I think they use multiple artists now, but they're all good. The original artist that's always worked for them on Ascension has really owned his craft and made everything that he's done look very good. The graphic design on the cards looks great. Everything is very clear-cut and easy to understand. The board looks good. Very, very impressed with that. Now, one thing I will say, and I think I may have mentioned this in previous reviews for Ascension products, or maybe I haven't, but I am a little bit perturbed that we keep getting standalone sets for Ascension with a lot of wasted space and a lot of wasted cards in the box. Now, of all of these sets, I think maybe Dreamscape would be the one that's most forgivable for doing that because there are so many new cards in the set. All these new Dream cards and the new Insight gems and all that type of stuff. But, I mean, we've already got all of the last sets were, like, starting from Rise of Vigil, then you had the Darkness Unleashed, which was a smaller set, but then you had Realms Unraveled, and what was the last one? The Dawn of Champions, all being standalone sets with a lot of Militia, Heavy Infantry, Mystics, Apprentices, Cultists, all these things that you don't need. So I really wish that they would go for maybe one big set and then a couple of small sets, something like that. So that's a minor complaint, though. Another minor complaint that actually aggravates me more, though, are the Insight gems. Why, oh why did they make them spherical, like football shaped? They roll all over the place. That's a more minor complaint, but I wish they'd had a little more foresight in that, a little more insight into it, if you will. Anywho, so the core of Ascension is still here. It still feels like the same game, and if you don't like Ascension, I don't think this set is going to change your mind. But I do think that if perhaps you're like me and you were getting a little burnt out on Ascension, you've been playing the app to death, and you don't really have much of a taste for the physical version anymore, this set was a very good reintroduction to the game. It really felt like it breathed some new life into it. That's how I felt playing it. I like the concept of getting the Dreamscape cards, adding more into it. It's your own secret buy pile. I've always enjoyed that in deck builders. It's one of the reasons I like High Command so much, because High Command, everyone has their own thing that they can do, their own faction and their own cards that they can buy from. This isn't quite as pronounced as that, but it still gives you an edge over your opponents. It feels like you're doing something and working towards something in secret that they can't have a tremendous influence on. Some cards can mess with someone else's Dreamscape pile, but not too many of them can. It's really just about you trying to get as much insight as you can, figuring out how to spend it, and I like that there are multiple ways that you can spend it. Some cards are going to let you say, like, monsters that'll say you can spend insight to kill it. Or you can spend insight to do special effects on some of the normal cards in the set that say, like, hey, spend an insight to double your runes or something like that. So I enjoy the flexibility of that currency and the fact that it sticks around. So even though I complained about the football-shaped gems, I like that they are a persistent currency in the game. And it never feels too overpowered. It does make for some really wild, swingy combos. In one game that I played with this, I got off one of the 10-point vision cards that just broke the game. I mean, by being able to do that very early in the game, it swung the entire game in my favor, and there was nothing else my opponent can really do. Had he drawn that card, it might have been a completely different story. but I feel like this is not any different than Ascension has always been. Ascension has always been a very swingy game. If someone just gets lucky enough on their turn to get the right amount of currency, whatever it might be, to kill or buy the right card, it can change the entire game in their favor just with that one play. It's an aggravating aspect of Ascension, but it's something that if you're a fan of the game, you just have to kind of live with. And I think just having more options now and making it so that if someone buys a really powerful card in the center row, and there are enough of those in the set for sure, aside from the dream cards, but if someone gets that ultimate card, you might be working on something completely different via Insight that's also an incredibly awesome card. Like the Angel, was it Paseatha or something, that gives you 3 of everything? That's just fantastic. So I think that it balances out that a bit and kind of brings you back to an even playing field, but now with more options and more kind of fun things to do. The whole Dreamborn aspect is interesting because there's that and other things in the game, like a lot of different constructs, keep a constant flow of insight coming into the game. So that would have been something I would have worried about, because I would have felt like, well, if you've got these awesome cards, but it's only under very particular circumstances you can actually get them. Like, actually, coincidentally, I feel that kind of way with the new Tanto Quarry set a little bit. Like, it's a little bit difficult to get the new beer cards in that set, even though it's this cool extra thing you can do. In this one, I never felt like I was not going to be able to get my insight cards. It was just a matter of how easy can I get them? How can I manipulate the board and my cards to get them easy as well? So a lot of the other normal cards in the set are pretty interesting. There's those new like one and done cards. They only cost you 1 to buy, but if you use their ability, you banish them. That's interesting. It's because I always like it when there's ways to have cheap stuff in the lineup to buy, and then even if you have to sacrifice them, at least you're keeping a circulation of cards going into the center row. So I think there's a lot to like in this set. Again, I don't think it's going to change anyone's mind about Ascension. I still wish they'd introduced more characters from the last set, Dawn of Champions. That would have been nice, more champion cards. I hope they don't abandon that idea. But I do think that this set integrates very well with a few of the last sets that we saw, like Realms Unraveled, Dawn of Champions, all the way back to Vigil. I still maintain fully that you can start with Vigil and work your way up and forget about everything before that. For real. Ascension has been at the top of its game lately. I do think that it has faded into the background quite a bit compared to other deck builders, for me especially, like Legendary and more static, deterministic deck builders like Tanto Quarry, for me personally, and Heart of Crown. But there's still a place for it. Whether you play it in the app or play it with the physical version, I'm sure this expansion will be coming to the app eventually. You should check it out either way because it's quite cool. That is Ascension Dreamscape from Stoneblood Entertainment. Check it out. Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.